Welcome back. Tax deadline is April 15th. That is next Monday, yet millions of taxpayers still have not filed their taxes. But if you're one of them, don't worry. Mireya Garcia talked with an expert who has some tips on how you can quickly and easily file for yourself.
Joining us now is Lisa Greene-Lewis with TurboTax. Good morning to you, Lisa.
Good morning.
So that tax deadline is less than 2 weeks out at this point. What should people know if they're waiting until the last minute to file?
First, there's no need to panic. You still have time, but I would get started, and I would start by gathering all your documents in one place. So documents that report your income, like your W-2s and 1099s, but also gather documents and receipts for those deductible items. And then you want to go online and e-file with direct deposit. That's the fastest way to get your tax refund.
I know that that is so important to everybody who's filing, the fastest way to get that money back. But, you know, the reality is that sometimes taxes can be complicated, famously complicated. So how does somebody know if they can file on their own or if maybe they should hire an expert to help?
It just depends on your preference. You know, some people like to do their taxes on their own. So I just think it really depends on your preference, or if you have questions, then you might want to have an expert help you.
Great advice. Now, we have already been hearing from a few tax filers who say they're seeing an increase in refunds this season. Is there a reason for that?
Yes, I know the IRS, they just put out their statistics, and there has been a bump in refunds. I know last season, the average refund was a little bit over $3,000, and it is still showing over $3,000, but a bump in that. I think it is because of inflation adjustments, most likely, and there's some other new tax provisions as well, but inflation adjustments, those increased the most we've seen in decades, about 7.1%. So one of them is the standard deduction, and about 90% of tax filers take the standard deduction. So if you're single, you're going to get a deduction of $13,850. Married filing jointly, $27,700, and then head of household, $20,800. And then some new provisions under energy efficiency were expanded. So if you put energy efficient windows and doors in your home, that credit went from up to $500 to $1,200. And then also electric vehicles, now you can get a credit for a used electric vehicle up to $4,000.
Okay, and just a reality of every tax season, it happens every year. Maybe you have the best of intentions. Maybe you already know you're not going to make that deadline. What can you do about that now?
So if you can't make it, you can file for an extension. You do need to file your extension by the deadline, which is April 15th. And then just remember, if you owe money, that is an extension to file. It is not an extension to pay.
Okay. And speaking of that, a lot of people are saying that they are getting a lot higher refunds this year, but a few people may owe money. What do you need to know if you're owing maybe for the very first time?
Yes, if you owe money, you can, there's ways that you can file for an installment agreement. So that the IRS lets you pay that over 6 years, but you just have to make sure, you know, you keep in contact with the IRS and you ask them about that installment agreement. Or if you can pay 90% of what you owe by the deadline, you can, you can avoid penalties.
Oh, excellent advice. Lisa Greene-Lewis with TurboTax, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.